early in the morning. It was so sweet and very uplifting. Honestly, this is really the way to start the day, the weekend, and the week. There's such beautiful vibrations and the holy name of the Lord sung from the heart. There is nothing, Krishna says, that's more, there's no place he'd rather be than a place where his names are being sung, especially with so much love in the assembly of devotees. He says, you won't even find me in Vaikuntha. You go to Vaikuntha, it'll be vacant because you won't even find me in the hearts of the meditating yogis. You won't find me anywhere else. If you're looking for me, you'll find me sitting or standing or dancing in a circle of devotees that are chanting my name. He says that. So thank you for facilitating, accommodating that, Adipurush Prabhu. And thank you, dear devotees, for always being such a kind group and so progressive, trying to find the next possible way we can uplift ourselves close to the lotus feet of Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. And so we continue our journey through this divine transcendental scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam. And here we are in the 10th canto, the smiling face of the Lord that is revealed in the 10th canto, the Summum Bonum, the ultimate of all existence, Lord Shri Krishna. Lord Shri Krishna is meant to be worshipped. And how is he meant to be worshipped? According to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's meant to be worshipped as a Krishna of Vrindavan. So this is a Krishna of Vrindavan that we're worshipping by engaging our minds, our intelligence in reading this section of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we are reading a very fascinating, very intriguing section, right? And maybe I can share my screen so you can also kind of read along. So let me know if I'm not on the right verse, but I believe today we're going to cover from chapter 6, verse 4 through 8, right?
Yeah, that's the right verse, Prabhu.
Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading Srimad Bhagavatam 10.6.4. Sakhe charye kadotpatya Putana nanda gokulam yoshitva mayayatmanam pravishat kamacharini. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So like in any good story, we have this starting point. Once upon a time. So once upon a time, Putana Rakshashi, who could move according to her desire and was wandering in outer space, converted herself by mystic power into a very beautiful woman and thus entered Gokula, the abode of Nanda Maharaj. Right? This is Kamacharini. According to her desire, she can go anywhere she wants. Right? And Yoshitva means she converted herself into a very beautiful woman. So she has quite amazing powers. Let's see what Srila Prabhupada says. And this is also interesting because it kind of, there's a lot of parallels we see in our Western culture as well, Western stories. So Rakshashis learn mystic powers by which they can travel in outer space without machines. In some parts of India, there are still such mystical witches who can sit on a stick and use it to fly from one place to another in a very short time. This art was known to Putana. Assuming the feature of a very beautiful woman, she entered Nanda Maharaj's abode, Gokula. So of course, we have seen this idea of, mystical witches engaging in witchcraft, and they can put some magic on a stick and just sit on a stick and fly. This whole broomstick notion of witches wearing a pointy hat, it's a common notion. Growing up in Africa, by the way, I also heard about stories of, like black magic, black magicians, they call them, who have some mystical powers, even in Africa, and they can get on a stick and they can charm it with certain, mystical thing, and they can travel from one place to another. In Zambia, in particular, I heard these stories, and some villagers would even say, "Yeah, sometimes we see someone flying on a stick, like in the night, and just like whooshing past." Who knows? But the fact that this idea of someone engaging in witchcraft, mystical power, sitting on a stick and flying, it's not just there in Harry Potter, or it's not just there in the the tales of Brothers Grimm or the other witches and that we heard about in Germany or in Europe, but we see it in India, we see it in Asia, we also hear about it in Africa. You don't hear so much from the African because it's not published so much, but it's there. It's a common thread that we see. So maybe it might give us some pause that maybe there might be some truth to it. But here we see that Prabhupada is confirming it, that even today there are people who may be able to do this in India. And this particular kind of witch is called khechri. Even in common Indian language, the word khechri is still being used, that, especially in a derogatory way, khechri, in someone who has very evil intent. So here it starts, sa khechri. You see, one who can travel, like a very specific kind of witch who can travel on a stick like that, So Putana was one of those, very empowered, you can say, and they do get these powers. Of course, even these powers come from the Lord. Everything comes from the Lord. Even the power to do great damage comes from the Lord. Doesn't mean the Lord wants that to happen, but the power and the minute freedom that allows these things to happen, that also comes from the Supreme Lord. So here we see Putana is moving about here and there, and she's able to convert herself into a very beautiful woman, which is also interesting, right? Because if she can convert herself into a beautiful woman, why doesn't she just stay as a beautiful woman? Why does she have to look ugly the whole time? But maybe some people like to, this is the way I am. They like to remain ugly. And then occasionally, they'll look very pretty, but for the most part, they want to remain ugly. And so maybe Putana Rakshasa like that. Let's go to the next verse. So verses 5 to 6. Tam keshabandha vyatishakta mallikam brihan nitamba stanakrichra madhyamam suvasa samkalpita karna bhushanam tvishola satkuntala manditananam valgo smitapanga visarga vikshitaye manoharantim vanitam vrajaukasam amam satam bhojakarena rupinim gopya shriyam drashtumivagattam patim. So now we get a much more detailed description of how beautiful she managed to make herself. Her hips were full, her breasts were large and firm, seeming to overburden her slim waist, and she was dressed very nicely. Her hair, adorned with a garland of mallika flowers, was scattered about her beautiful face. Her earrings were brilliant, and she smiled very attractively, glancing upon everyone. Her beauty drew the attention of all the inhabitants of Vraja, especially the men. When the gopis saw her, they thought that the beautiful goddess of fortune, holding a lotus flower in her hand, had come to see her husband, Krishna. So this is very telling, of course. When someone very beautiful, overwhelmingly beautiful, a very rare beauty appears, and especially if she's a stranger, appears in the midst of any, crowd or any group, certainly she'll draw attention. Both women and men will look at her. Women will adore her and they'll want to be like her. And the men will adore her and want to be with her. Especially, it says over here, especially the men, naturally. The beauty of a woman is very powerful. And that we see, right? When we see, even in the modern world, we see it when marketing companies want to sell something. Generally the female beauty form is used as a selling point, right? And billboards, when you want to attract someone to buy a truck or buy some cigarettes or whatever, they would invariably use women, very good looking women pictures. Look at magazines. On the covers of men's magazines, you see beautiful women. On the cover of women's magazines, you see beautiful women. Only a few magazines, maybe they put some men, but generally the beautiful women are on all magazines. So this is very powerful, this attractiveness, this attraction. And Putana was very much aware of how that works. And so when you want to distract somebody from your nefarious motives, it's very easy to just distract them when you overwhelm them with this kind of beauty. So that was her idea. Also, when someone is very beautiful, doors get opened for you, and all kinds of concessions are given, and everybody puts flowers in your pathway and things like that. So she was aware of that too, of that power of beauty. So because she was dressed so nicely, she looked very nice. And interestingly, this is something telling also. When the gopis saw her, they thought that the beautiful goddess of fortune holding lotus flower in her hand had come to see her husband. So she was dressed very beautifully, but the impression she created among the gopis was that she's a great devotee of the Lord, maybe even the personality of the goddess of fortune. See, so she was dressed as a devotee. And this is something to keep in mind when we go later on and Lord Brahma remembers this pastime in his prayers to Lord Krishna in later chapters. And that's a very beautiful prayer, that she was dressed as a devotee. Okay. So verse number 7. Bala grihastatra vichinvati shishun yadrichayananda grihe sadantakam balam pratichanna nijoru tejasam dadarshatalpe gnimivahitam bhasi. While searching for small children, Putana, whose business was to kill them, entered the house of Nanda Maharaj unobstructed, having been sent by the superior potency of the Lord. Without asking anyone's permission, she entered Nanda Maharaj's room, where she saw the child sleeping in bed, his unlimited power covered like a powerful fire covered by ashes. She could understand that this child was not ordinary, but was meant to kill all demons. Purport. Demons are always busy creating disturbances and killing, but the child lying on the bed in the house of Nand Maharaj was meant to kill many demons. See? So interestingly, Putana had already killed quite a few babies prior to coming to Krishna in the same methodology. And the word had spread that the babies are dying. But somehow she was so charming that in spite of this warning that had been spread around, she gained access. People let her in unobstructed. See? And she could see from the beauty of the child that it's not ordinary. But at the same time, she couldn't help herself. She had to continue doing her job. She didn't think she would get killed by this little child. She had no idea, obviously. And so this is the last verse we'll cover today. Vibudhyatam balakamarika griham chara charatma sanimillite kshana anantamaropayadankam yathoragam suptama buddhirajjudhi. Translation: Lord Shri Krishna, the all-pervading supersoul lying on the bed, understood that Putana, a witch who was expert in killing small children, had come to kill him. Therefore, as if afraid of her, Krishna closed his eyes. Thus, Putana took upon her lap him who was to be her own annihilation, just as an unintelligent person places a sleeping snake on his lap, thinking the snake to be a rope. Purport. In this verse, there are two perplexities. When Krishna saw that Putana had come to kill him, he thought that since this woman was present with motherly affection, although artificial, he had to offer her a benediction. Therefore, he looked at her with a little perplexity and then closed his eyes again. Putana Rakshashi was also perplexed. She was not intelligent enough to understand that she was taking a sleeping snake on her lap. She thought the snake to be an ordinary rope. The two words, antakam and anantam, are contradictory. Because of not being intelligent, Putana thought that she could kill her antakam, the source of her annihilation. But because he was ananta, unlimited, no one can kill him. So the purport ends here. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my humble obeisance. I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, who has opened my darkened eyes and filled my heart with transcendental knowledge. I further offer my obeisances to all of you assembled Vaishnavas and seek your kind blessings and permission that we may recite Srimad Bhagavatam together. So, this pastime of Lord Krishna, killing various demons, and in particular this pastime of Putana, is very deep and intriguing. The acharyas have analyzed very minutely every single word that is written here. So, Krishna closed his eyes. Krishna closed his eyes. And the acharyas have given various reasons or suggestions why Krishna could have closed his eyes. So, in Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada expands on this a little bit more. He says that actually Putana had come to some realization that this child is so powerful he can destroy the whole universe immediately. Right? So Prabhupada writes that Putana thought this child is so powerful he can destroy the whole universe immediately. Putana's understanding is very significant. Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is situated in everyone's heart. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that he gives one necessary intelligence and he also causes one to forget. Right? In 15:15 he says, Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha. So even that forgetfulness is facilitated by Krishna. So Putana was immediately aware that the child whom she was observing in the house of Nand Maharaj was indeed the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She was actually aware. That's why that verse says that, it's like a fire covered by ashes when she saw him in that cradle, in that bed. He was lying there as a small baby. That does not mean he was less powerful. This materialistic theory that God worship is anthropomorphic is not correct. No living being can become God by undergoing meditation or austerity. God is always God. Krishna as a baby is as complete as he is when he's a full-fledged youth. The Mayavad theory holds that the living entity was formerly God, but has now become overwhelmed by the influence of Maya. Therefore, Mayavadis say that presently he is not God. But when the influence of Maya is taken away, he again becomes God. This theory cannot be applied to the minute living entities. The living entities are minute parts and parcels of Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are minute particles or sparks in the original fire. These sparks can be covered by the influence of Maya, but the original fire, Krishna, cannot. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even from the beginning of his appearance in the house of Vasudeva and Devaki. So now, why did he close his eyes? Krishna showed the nature of a small baby and closed his eyes as if to avoid the face of Putana. This closing of the eyes is interpreted and studied in different ways by the devotees. Some say that Krishna closed his eyes because he did not like to see the face of Putana, who had killed so many children and who had now come to kill him. I don't want to see this woman. She's a murderer. I don't even want to see her. She'd killed babies. That's horrible. Others say that Putana hesitated to take the baby on her lap because something extraordinary was being dictated to her from within. And in order to give her assurance, Krishna closed his eyes so that she would not be frightened. Because we see in that verse, right, that she recognized that this is someone who can destroy the whole universe. So to kind of make sure that the pastime carries on nicely and to not freak her out, to not scare her with his eyes, even though he's a cute baby eyes, he closed his eyes. So that's another angle. And yet others interpret in this way. Krishna appeared in order to kill the demons and give protection to the devotees, as stated in Bhagavad Gita. Paritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya chadushkratam. The first demon to be killed was a woman. This is the first demon he's killing. According to Vedic rules, the killing of a woman or of a brahmana or cows or a child is strictly forbidden. Krishna was obliged to kill the demon Putana. And because the killing of a woman is forbidden according to Vedic Shastra, he could not help but close his eyes. And yet another interpretation is that Krishna closed his eyes because he simply took Putana to be his nurse. That she's coming to feed him. Putana came to Krishna just to offer her breast for the Lord to suck. Krishna is so merciful that even though he knew Putana was there to kill him, he took her as his nurse or mother. And so he closed his eyes. Babies generally close their eyes. Sometimes they close when it's time to feed and they'll close and get into a relaxed mood. And then they fall asleep pretty quickly after that. So it's very natural. So any of these are all offered by different acharyas. And what I just read was directly from the Krishna book that Srila Prabhupada has written. These are different ways where we can relish the multifaceted diamond that is Krishna and the gem that is Krishna's pastimes. And our acharyas facilitate our appreciation of these various angles, that all these are possible. And Krishna accomplishes multiple things at the same time. And even when he does something as simple as close his eyes, the acharyas rush to offer their ecstatic expression of joy. Just a simple act. That's how great the Lord is. He just closes his eyes and everyone celebrates it. Every little thing the Lord does is so loving and lovable. We can't help but absorb our minds in every little thing. That is called worship. That is called absorption of the mind. Next time we see a baby, we can think of Krishna. Next time we see a baby closing its eyes, we can think of how Krishna closed his eyes and how beautiful he must have looked. That is the whole point of reading Bhagavatam, to connect all our day-to-day experiences with the divine remembrance of the Lord. Krishna closed his eyes. It's quite far out. Wow, he closed his eyes. Let's celebrate it. We see reflections of this in our modern life too. You know, when people worship celebrities. Oh, he came there and his, she looks so pretty and she's wearing this dress designed by this designer and her purse fell down. Oh my God, her purse fell down. What does that mean? And they'll absorb their minds in the silly little things of these ridiculous, so-called celebrities. And that's natural. When we absorb our mind in anybody because of our affection for them, it is natural to look at every little thing. So what Krishna book is inviting us to do, what Bhagavatam is inviting us to do, is to take that natural propensity and repose it upon Krishna's beautiful pastimes, that even when he closes his eyes, it's so wonderful. See, that's how we can, like Prabhupada says, think of Krishna 24 hours a day. You see, why do so many acharyas spend so much time? So it's nice. Now, he closed his eyes and he sees that this is motherly affection. Okay. We might have already discussed this before, but Putana was a witch and she was a demoness and she had come to kill Krishna. But we all know that when Krishna kills somebody, it's not an ordinary death, right? They always end up getting liberated. Putana's liberation was very unique. Even though she had come as a demon, she got liberation to Goloka Vrindavan. That is amazing. That is the highest thing anybody can get, to Goloka Vrindavan, where she ends up serving eternally as one of the assistants to Mother Yashoda in the motherly affection to Krishna. How does that happen? So one may wonder, there's so many yogis and even bhaktas, we try so hard to get the attention of the Lord. And here is this Putana demoness who really just wanted to kill the Lord and was so against him. Even, who would want to kill a child like that? Yet here she was murdering a child. And yet she was given immediate liberation to the highest possible existence, Golok Vrindavan. So there is definitely something in her background. There's a backstory. And we learn of her backstory in Garga Samhita. There's another scripture called Garga Samhita and also Brahma Vaivarta Puran. So there are two scriptures where we learn of Putana's past life. So in her past life, her name was Ratnamala. And she was the younger sister of Bali Maharaj. You know Bali Maharaj? Bali Maharaj was the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj. The great Prahlad Maharaj, for whom Lord Nrsimha came out of the pillar, his grandson was Bali Maharaj. And Bali Maharaj had become so powerful that he had taken over all the three worlds with his prowess, military prowess, and mystical prowess. And he was the richest person in all existence, most powerful. But at that time, then, to rescue the demigods and put things in order, Lord Krishna took an incarnation as Vamanadev. And when Lord Vamana came, he was very short. He's a dwarf. He was incredibly beautiful. He looked just like a little child, practically a toddler. He was so sweet, so cute. Any woman who would see him would just melt with motherly affection. So now when this pastime of Vamanadeva was happening. Bali Maharaj was at the peak of his success. He had done his major sacrifice, and he was about to start this huge, like another undertaking. And Vamanadeva shows up. And of course, Ratnamala was sitting there in the festivities, all dressed up nicely. And when she saw this gorgeous Vamanadeva, who was the Supreme Lord himself, she witnessed his arrival. Her heart completely melted, and she desired, oh, I wish I had a child. I wish he was my child. I wish that I could feed him personally from my own body, out of my own maternal affection. I just can't imagine any greater happiness than to nurse him right now. How can any mother not feel this when she sees Lord Vamanadeva? And even as she was just absorbed in thinking of this beautiful toddler, beautiful baby-like person, the whole pastime unfolded in front of her eyes, where this baby-like person changed from Vamana to Trivikram, and he became so gigantic she couldn't even see the top of his head. And his one footstep covered all, up and down, everything. And his third footstep, he had to put on Bali's head and just took everything from Bali. And it completely shook her. And she became very angry, upset, and bitter toward this Vamanadeva. That such a child should be poisoned. Now Krishna, who is in everyone's heart and who fulfills all desires, registered both the desires. He registered her desire to breastfeed him, and he also made a note of her desire to poison him. Both. So then the Lord gave her the benediction that you will have the opportunity to suckle him. And at the same time, will incorporate your reaction to want to poison in the same event. So may your desire be fulfilled. And so, see, that's the thing, that her initial desire was to serve the Lord positively. It was very strong, and she'd fallen in love with the Lord. But then, because of her conditioned nature, and because her approach was not fully purified, she developed a bitter animosity toward the Lord. But the Lord never forgot her desire to serve him very powerfully and very lovingly, you see. So in this pastime, as Putana, when he killed her, he kept in mind her desire, and she got that desire fulfilled of actually get to breastfeed the Supreme Lord himself. And he sucked the life right out of her also. We learn about that later on. But I'd like to draw attention to now, Lord, we'll just fast forward a little bit to Lord Brahma's prayer, right? Bhagavatam. So in the 14th chapter, Lord Brahma prays. It's a very beautiful verse, 10:14:35. This verse I call the super mercy of the Lord verse. It's also in a very rare meter. This meter is only appears like 7 times in the whole Bhagavatam. So it's very beautifully sung, very beautifully metered out. So I'll sing it. If you can look it up, maybe I can just bring it up over here. Okay. Esham Gosha Nivasinam Bhavan Kim Devarate Tinash Cheto Vishwa Phalat Phalam Tvadaparam Kutrapyayan Muhyati Sadveshadiva Putanapi Sakula Tvameva Deva Pita Yadhamartha Suhrit Prayatmatanaya Pranashaya Stvatkrite. Lord Brahma says, my mind becomes bewildered just trying to think of what reward other than you could be found anywhere. You are the embodiment of all benedictions, which you bestow upon these residents of the cowherd community of Vrindavan. You have already arranged to give yourself to Putana and her family members in exchange for her disguising herself as a devotee. So what is left for you to give these devotees of Vrindavan, whose homes, wealth, friends, dear relations, bodies, children, and very lives and hearts are all dedicated to you? So it's a very sweet, poetic prayer that he's saying, my Lord, you are so great, but you have become bankrupt. You are so merciful to a fault. There's no greater gift than you, but you have given yourself to Putana and her demon people. And for what? All she did was she disguised herself as a devotee. She only pretended to be a devotee, and you just kind of fell for it. And you gave her everything. You gave her yourself. So now you're bankrupt. You have nothing left to give these people who really deserve it, whose homes, their wealth, their minds, their hearts, everything they've given to you completely. And now you have nothing to give them. Because when you're a baby, you give yourself to Putana, you see. Of course, Brahma knows that Lord is unlimited. He can continue giving himself to everybody, but he's trying to highlight the super mercy of the Lord. So what encouragement can we derive from this verse? See, it says, Sadveshadeva Putanapi. Sadvesh means dressed like a devotee, or just projecting as a devotee, or pretending to be a devotee, or disguising herself as a devotee. So Krishna is so kind that even if we make an attempt to pretend to be a devotee, he will come very close to us. Can you imagine if we make a sincere attempt to stop pretending and actually do something serious in Krishna consciousness? Maybe chant one mantra with all our purity and all the humility and all the right intention at our command. Just one mantra. Can you imagine how much more he'll be mercifully inclined toward us? Can you imagine if we make some attempt to break away from our misgivings or our negativity to come closer to him? If we make some genuine effort to be more forgiving and leave behind things that are not worth dwelling upon, with the aim of thinking of Krishna purely, can you imagine how much more inclined he would be? So this verse, I find great solace in it, that for Putana, just for pretending to be devotee, he gave so much. Certainly, if we can just chant deeply and make a genuine prayer to the Lord, that my Lord, you did this for Putana, please help me also. So thank you very much. I'll pause over here. If anybody has any comments or questions, this beautiful pastime, please share. Hare Krishna.
Beautiful class, Madana-Gopala Prabhu, as always. Thanks for telling us the backstory of Putana. It's very enlightening. And my personal takeaway is that Krishna was able to accommodate Putana, so he's fully capable of accommodating us. That's very hope-giving. Thank you very much for bringing this up, Prabhu. Okay, dear devotees, time to speak, time to contribute to class. Keep your interventions brief and on point so that we can accommodate everybody. Okay, Shikshashtakam Prabhu, Hare Krishna, followed by Jamuna Jaya.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
I was just impressed by the concept of meditating on each little thing that Krishna does. And it kind of reminded me of, there's a yoga, I think it's a Stanga yoga, where you meditate on each limb of the Lord, starting with the feet. Is that correct? Is that the name of the yoga?
I'm not sure if that's the name. It may be, but there's definitely a meditation where you start at every limb and yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's a nice meditation. It just, just like you said, celebrities, everybody's enamored with everything they do. So devotees can get enamored with the ultimate celebrity.
That's right.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Yes, that's a good point. There's so many heroes in this world, but they're not worthy. There's only one worthy hero. Okay, we had Jamuna Jaya, but I think she put her hand down.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
I'm having a hard time hearing because it seems your Your microphone is very loud. Maybe if you spoke a little slowly, softly, it might work. I'm not sure.
Okay. It's not that. I'll put it in the chat box.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have Gail Mataji. Go ahead, Gail.
Hi, Krishna Prabhu.
Haribol.
Yeah, I'm so glad you did this story because it's one of my faves, because it's so inspired, so hope giving. Anyway, I was just wondering if we know Putana's name as a nurse.
Putana's name, you mean in a previous life?
No. When Krishna gave her the position as a nurse.
Oh, her eternal name in spiritual world. I am not aware of that name. Yeah. It would be nice to know.
Gail, you will find out. Just be patient. You'll get that.
You are so precious. Thank you for that encouragement.
She'll probably look her up first thing she gets there. Wait, hold on. Stop everything. Where is that ex-Putana? I want to see her.
How did you know? Yes.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Jamuna Jai is still typing. Okay, I have my question, Madana-Gopala. When Krishna fulfills our desires, why does it always have to be in the next life? Why can't he just fulfill my desires now?
That's a good question. It doesn't always have to be in the next life. A lot of the times it is in this life. And a lot of devotees have, of course, here Krishna Dev Prabhu says Sudama's desires were fulfilled. Of course, Sudama's, his desire was not to be so rich and all that. Krishna overwhelmed him, but it can happen. A lot of the times it happens this lifetime, but the situation requires the next lifetime, for it to work out properly, for his pastime to play out. And also karma tends to work like that too. Like Dhritarashtra, the story of Dhritarashtra, where, many, like hundreds of lifetimes before Dhritarashtra, he was another king and he had killed, unfortunately, like there are two birds and they had like 100 children, and he was a hunter or something, and he had killed all the 100 children of those two birds, and he poked the eyes off one of the birds, and he was just very vicious, and he was cursed that, well, part of his karma was to have to go through that same pain where he would be blind and he would have to witness the killing of his 100 children. Now that didn't happen in his very next life. It happened after like 100 lifetimes. Why? Because to collect the pious credit, to even have one son, you need so much. Imagine how much pious credit to have 100 sons. So to collect that pious credit, he was allowed the 100 lifetimes. We actually managed to collect pious credit to get enough so that he could get a whack at the 101th lifetime. So the karma works in very complicated ways. So similarly, well, of course, Krishna can always override everything, but he can also choose how he facilitates something to happen, and he may decide that it'll work better. It'll actually be more effective in this particular situation. So it can be immediate, or it could be you have to wait. So
yeah, Krishna is the ultimate overrider.
Yes.
Okay, dear devotees, one more reflection. 7:59. Let's do it.
Angelica.
Us, Angelica.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I just find it so beautiful how even a small glimpse, like closing the eyes, can be so meditated upon. It actually reminds me of Radharani looking at Krishna in Vrindavan, and how when she even almost closes one of her eyes, she is already experiencing lifetimes of separation from the Lord, and how much we can strive for that, like a moment of not chanting, feeling like we are already missing our Lord in the form of his name, or missing remembering him through association and hearing and reading and chanting. So that's that's such a huge inspiration.
Yes, thank you. I see there's a question from, thank you, Angelique. There's a question from Karthik. He's saying, why does, anyway, I don't get it. Yeah, here. Some pure devotee like Prahlad Maharaj have to suffer more than Putana, but Prahlad Maharaj didn't really suffer. He just appeared to suffer. His situation looked like suffering, but he didn't suffer. So pure devotees don't suffer. They perform the pastime, and he smiled through the whole thing. So
What about mixed devotees? Do they suffer?
depends on how the ratio of the mixture.
Okay.
Yes. All right.
Madana-Gopala, did you see
Hare
Karthik? Karthik has a very intelligent question as always. He's a scientist.
Yeah, that's the question that I was just addressing.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Madana-Gopala Prabhu ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
All the devotees.
Bhaktivinoda ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.
Good
Thank
seeing you. Thanks for your smiles, Prabhus.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Love you all. Hare Bol. See
Hare
you
Bol.
tomorrow.